So I'm Dave Rogers. I was a sergeant in the Army. I grew up in New York. Actually, I grew up in Hell's Kitchen. When I was 10, I told my mother I wanted to be an artist. So back then, they used to have these artists that would sit around Washington Square Park and like draw a portrait of you for like $5. And my mother brought me down there and she goes, if you became an artist, this would be your life. I'm 10 years old. I'm like, $5 for a drawing? Yes. You know, but no, I've always been interested in art. And even in the military, I did art, not all the time, but throughout the military. I left home when I was 15. I lived on the streets. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I had no idea. At first, I joined the reserves. I said, well, I'll join the reserves. I'll have money for college. And then halfway through basic training, my drill sergeant convinced me to go active duty. And I spent 14 years in the Army. Every day was different. One day you're working in the office, you're filing paperwork. The next day you're out doing field training. If you're like me, if you were airborne, you were jumping once in a while. So you had to do rig training and put together your chutes and everything. I was in the first Gulf War and I was in Bosnia. I was deployed to Egypt for a little while. And I was at the World Trade Center and I did Homeland Security. It was a nice life because you just never got bored with what you were doing. Just came back to New York. I just joined the National Guard here in New York. I was AGR, Active Guard Reserve. I came back because I was going to finish out my master's degree and then leave the military and join the FBI. That was my plan. And a month after I got back home, it happened. And my sister happened to be visiting me, and she woke me up and she goes, you got to come see the TV. So I saw what was going on, and automatically I went into my bedroom and grabbed my go bag. We were down there, we were pulling security for the on-site morgue. And the head of FEMA walked up and said, I need 5 guys. I just lost, 5 more police officers. They just walked off the job. I need 5 guys to fill the bucket brigade. My commander pointed at me and was like, go. And so I did. I just didn't even think about it. We just grabbed buckets and started searching for people. Then on September 13th, the front of the American Express building was coming down. And everybody was running out of there, and everybody was, was running everywhere. And my training just kicked in. I was like, all right, I got to guide people. I got to direct people. I got to make sure people go in the right direction. And next thing I know, I got knocked over. I fell down. I hit my head and my neck. And I got back up, and I was hurting, but I got back up. And then we ran to the waterfront, and we had to jump on these boats. So I jumped on the boat, and I fell again. Went to see the doctor. They looked at my back. They said there's nothing wrong. They said probably just a muscle strain. But my back kept getting worse. So I finally went to a doctor, and she's like, did anyone look at your neck? I said, why would anybody look at my neck? The pain's in my back. So they did an MRI of my neck and found that I broke my neck. If I took everything else I went through in the military, all my experience in the military, Iraq, Bosnia, Egypt, wherever I went, all of that combined would not equal one day at the World Trade Center and what I felt. And I think that's because, when you get deployed, you go to Iraq, you go to Bosnia, you go to Somalia, wherever you go in the world, you know that if you come home, you leave it behind. You don't totally leave it behind, don't get me wrong. We all take war home with us. But you're not there anymore. You don't see anymore. You're not reminded of it every day. And having grown up in New York City, and then having lived in New York City, and then still living in New York City, that constant reminder, even when I wasn't down there anymore, even when I wasn't in uniform anymore, eats away at you. It's something that you just can't walk away from. We slept in the vacant buildings near the World Trade Center. When I went to Stony Brook, the doctor there, she did the MRI of my lungs, and she goes, I've never seen anything like it. She goes, your lungs are perfectly pink, but you have all the signs and symptoms of somebody who's been smoking for 40 years. So I only have between 50 and 60% capacity in my lungs. I've had 3 strokes. I have vertigo, severe PTSD. I have TBI, traumatic brain injury. And this is all from the World Trade Center. And one day I was in the Army, and the next day I was sitting home on medical leave waiting for the military to decide what they were going to do with me. And basically, I was forced out. I truly thought that if I went where they told me to go and I did what they told me to do and I did a good job, that I'd be taken care of. You know, I would get out and I'd be taken care of and it'd be no big deal. But it took a lot of years for me to get my benefits and get everything straightened out and fixed, and I was almost homeless. I was sleeping on people's couches and I had no money coming in and I was struggling to get by. I happened to be at the VA one day and this guy from the VFW saw me struggling and I was yelling at the people at the counter. I had severe PTSD, you know, and they're telling me they can't help me because I don't have an appointment. So I'm yelling at the guy behind the counter, and this guy from the VFW came up and he said, "I'm from the VFW, we can help you. We can help you get your benefits." And he took me down to the service officer building and hooked me up with a service officer and started applying. But for the first 2 years, yeah, I was basically wandering around aimlessly, not knowing what to do. You know, and that made it even harder because I felt totally disconnected, you know. But then when the VFW helped me, I said, well, you know, I got to give back. I got to help out. Because the VFW does a lot. But because it's so old, they're not on social media as much as a lot of these new groups. We've been around 120 years. You know, it says a lot about an organization that's been around that long, the oldest existing combat veteran organization in the world. But times have changed also. People want new stuff. You know, the days of dances and spaghetti dinners, they're nice, but most young veterans want to be part of a running club or they want to get interested in the arts. So we have free guitar lessons every Wednesday down at the VFW, and a couple of times a year we do either a ceramic or a printmaking workshop. We now do veterans at the Patchogue Theater. So veterans get to perform live at the Patchogue Theater. We have Veteran Art Show every year, showing that veterans are more than just people who served our country. So I try to tell young veterans today, you know, you got to join these organizations because they will take care of you. And we need to keep these organizations around to continue to take care of veterans. So this is down here is all my, my medals, my ribbons, my badges. That flag actually flew over the White House. You know, you can apply to have a flag that flies over the White House. And so somebody applied for me to have a flag. That rock is from Greenland. We were on our way to Frankfurt to go down to Bosnia, and we had to stop over in Greenland. I don't know why I grabbed the rock, but I did. That orange flashlight is from the World Trade Center when I was down there. And in that little specimen container is some of the rock from the World Trade Center that I keep. So yeah, these are all my mess kits, my shower kits from the field, my medic bag. Yeah, I've collected stuff over the years. So yeah, this is my little museum, all my challenge coins. I just recently, in the last couple of years, have started doing 5Ks again. Not exactly marathons, but and actually Grunt did a 5K with me, which is really cool. And I thought that was very cool. Grunt got his own medal. The woman at the finish line, she's like, "Oh, he did it with you, he can have a medal."
That's great.
So he was very happy about that. So this is Grunt, my service dog from Paws of War. I've had him 4 months now, and as you can see, he's very good at laying down. When I have anxiety, when I get really anxious, he'll come sit and he'll put his head on my lap. And that's his way of telling me, okay, you need to calm down, you know, you need to, you know. Or if I'm out in the public and he sees I'm having anxiety, he'll come and he'll push against my legs, you know. And that's his way of saying, okay, I'm here for you, I'm giving you comfort. Like, I know you're having some anxiety right now, you need to relax. I still have a lot of anxiety in public, but when he's with me, I feel better. Like, I feel like I can be there. You know, I can go anywhere. So I'm really grateful to Pause the War and all they're doing for the veterans and all the help that they give us. I know people like to say thank you for your service, and it used to anger me. I think partly because I blame myself, not myself personally, but like I felt like we could have avoided the World Trade Center, so you have that little bit of guilt inside. I've had some friends who have died over the years, and so I have what is known as survivor guilt, because some of my buddies went off to the new Gulf War, Iraq and Afghanistan, without me, and I wasn't there for them, and they died, and so you have that. So I was angry for a while, for a long time, and also living my whole life. I mean, here I was in the military. I ran marathons, I jumped from airplanes, I rock climbed, I did all this stuff, and now I'm disabled. And I felt like people were taking pity on me and not really understanding what I was going through. My thing now is I say to people, when you see a veteran, don't thank them for their service. Tell them welcome home. Because the truth of the matter is, like I said, a lot of us, we bring it home with us. We never stop serving. That war comes home. It's why 22 veterans a day kill themselves, because the war comes home with us. And so it's important to let them know that you appreciate that they came home, and that they're here still. When I got out, I couldn't see myself in an office job. I tried, but it just wasn't me. I taught for a while. I enjoyed that. I was a professor at a university in China, because I have 2 master's degrees. I have an MBA and an MFA. But it was nice getting back into my art and to find myself. So this is my studio. It's a little crowded. I'm working on a lot of stuff right now, but this is where I do my artwork. Right now I'm working on a series of women with fish heads. I gave it a try and they sold, and so I keep making them and they keep selling, so I must be doing something right. I do some military pieces still, but yeah, most of my pieces I'm working on now are these fish head paintings, because you can get really creative with, that's an angler fish. I work on about 10 paintings at a time, so there's a layer process. I do the lines, then I cover them in blue, then I fill in the color, then I put in my symbols, and so yeah, this is just the beginning process. And I do my musician series. This is, Billy Gibbons, obviously. I love ZZ Top. When I do my musicians, I've done Miles Davis, B.B. King, Steven Tyler, Pink. Most of the colors I actually make myself. I buy pigments and I make the colors. And then, so these that you see, these symbols that you see down here, these represent all my illnesses that I have. My lungs and my blood disorder and all my issues from the World Trade Center. These symbols up here is actually a language I developed from 5 different languages. They say writing's, therapeutic, and writing's a way for you to get your ideas out, and I do love to write. And I wanted to share my stories in my artwork, but I didn't want it to be so obvious. You'll see I use red in a lot of my paintings. Red is my way to express my anger. So I use, my red to get my anger out of me and put it into my artwork. But it's still beautiful. People see it and they see a beautiful painting and they don't think about, oh, I was angry when I was painting this. And I guess for me, it's, also a way for me to say there's a little bit of hope. It's a little bit about bringing some peace to all the chaos in my life. This is the only one I've done in this style of the World Trade Center, and it's one of my favorite pieces, actually. So on the front here, you see all these firefighters and police officers that were part of the scene of what was going on. And I tell people, one of the hardest things for me also, because of what happened down there and since the World Trade Center, people don't really talk about the soldiers that were down there. You don't really hear about the soldiers. So I put them I put the National Guard soldiers here, like in the background, almost unseen, because that's how I feel like we're being treated, you know, like unseen, unheard. They just forgot about us. I love my life though. I get up every day and I paint and I sit on boards and I help people, and I've traveled to 48 countries. What more can you ask for? So this is my life.